Assalamualaikum, Adil. How are you doing? Good to have you here.
Yeah, Walaikum salam, Rabia. Happy to be here. And I'm doing good. I'm currently visiting my parents in Pakistan, so always happy to be in Pakistan.
Amazing. So, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Wow, where do I start? So, I'm currently the Chief Technology Officer at Fandom. Fandom is the largest fan platform in the world when it comes to entertainment and gaming. We've got 350 million unique visitors a month that come to 250,000 of our communities across 50 million pages of content that our uh, super fans have created and so on. And I've been at Fandom for the last 6+ years. I'm a super fan myself. I love sci-fi. I grew up on Star Trek, love fantasy, Lord of the Rings, all sorts of fiction. I probably consume way more content than I should. And I'm based out of the Bay Area. I'm in the Silicon Valley area. And before this, I've had a very interesting journey of multiple other startups as well as large public companies as well. But happy to go in whichever order you want. I'm happy to go back and tell you how I got into tech and computers and all that good stuff, or I can go backwards, however you want to do it.
Yeah, I would first love to know how you got into tech.
So, back in the day, mid 80s, I was in middle school, I think sixth grade, and my mom actually introduced me to a computer club. She said, I don't know anything about computers, I have no idea what they are, but there's this thing called like a computer club. Would you be interested in joining it? And I was like, yeah, absolutely. I don't know much about it either. And then that was it. Basically, that's what got me started. I fell in love with it, started programming in sixth grade, and then took computer science in high school when I was doing my senior Cambridge and so on. And so for me, like the path pretty much was decided at that particular point. Wanted to go and pursue a degree in computer science. When I went to university, and all that good stuff. So that like I think once I got into it, it was the thing that I wanted to do. I did programming competitions back in the day when I was in high school. Came first all over Pakistan in a programming competition. That was a chapter of the International Student Software Competition. So then I represented the Pakistan team across Asia, competing with 30 other countries when I was in high school. So just got started on that, and so it just never looked back. And I think some of the best things that happened to me happened at that point. And so when I after college, I worked in, I went to the University of Texas at Austin, did a computer science degree there, worked while I was in college as well. Then I ended up joining a consulting company out of Boston. It was a company called iCube, which then became Razorfish, and got introduced to a few interesting enterprise scale projects with SAP. Ended up being the tech lead on mysap.com, and then ended up being the tech lead on SAP's oil and gas product. And so got a lot of really good learnings from both those projects. But I used to come to Silicon Valley quite a lot, both for work and some family stuff. And I, at that particular point, had no desires to live in the US for a very long time. I thought I'd stay here for 2, 3 years and then go back. So I thought if I want to be in the US for 2, 3 years, Silicon Valley is really the only place that I want to be. So I moved to Silicon Valley towards the beginning of 2001 when the dot-com bust was happening and people were moving out. I didn't care. I was like, nope, this is where I want to be. So I ended up joining a startup at that point, a company called Homestead Technologies. They were 100 something people, but from a scale perspective, they were the 18th largest site on the internet at that point. And so I got to learn a lot about large scale from a lot of really great people around me. And some of those lessons stayed with me throughout my career. And so when I joined Homestead, they were transitioning from a free product, a free website product, into a paid subscription product. And so back in the day, there weren't really any off-the-shelf subscription products available because everybody pretty much got most things for free. So I had the fun job of building all of our billing, subscription, marketing systems, and so on. So that was a lot of great learning, and it got me really close to the business side of things as well. I always really cared about how whatever I built was impacting the end user. And so in addition to that particular part, this also got me a lot closer to the business side of things. So I thought it was really, really great learning. And then out of Homestead, we ended up creating a product called PhotoSite. Because one of the other interesting things was we were looking at how users were using our product. And most of the users were trying to build a personal website to be able to share photos. This is before Facebook, Flickr, Instagram, any of these things, right? I'm talking about 2003. And so we ended up creating this photo sharing service called Photosite that really started taking off. And we ended up selling that company to a public company called United Online. They owned NetZero, Juno, Classmates.com, and a few other things. So I had the fun job of moving with that acquisition and setting up that company within that public company. So a lot of great learning, throughout that process. Then after a couple of years, United decided that they wanted to sell Photosite to HP, to Snapfish. So I basically saw through the sale of that, but I wanted to go and do something different again. And the folks at Homestead had been after me for a while to come back. And they had really started focusing on small businesses. And that was something I was passionate about. So I decided to go back, give it another try. And soon after, we ended up getting acquired by Intuit, the guys that build TurboTax and QuickBooks and all that good stuff. So Intuit at that time was trying to transition from being a desktop software company to a SaaS-based company, and Homestead was all SaaS. And so some of the folks in the Homestead leadership team, including myself, got to take on larger roles at Intuit at that point. And so I ended up taking on Intuit.com and a few other properties, and ended up running running engineering for 5 properties for Intuit. So a lot of great learning over the next, almost 4 years there. But then I had this itch to go and do something small again. And so not knowing what I would do next, I decided that I was going to leave Intuit and go figure out my next thing. It seemed a little crazy at that particular point. It was an interesting risk, but definitely worth it. So after I left, I ended up joining a few months later. I ended up joining Postures, which was the smallest company that I had at least worked with at that particular point. I think we were around 10 people when I joined. The company was a Series A company. And we ended up launching a new product offering at TechCrunch Disrupt. So just a lot of good learning, a lot of fun that came out of that. And then Twitter became interested in us after that product launch. And so we ended up selling that company to Twitter. So then I had this other dilemma. I had a lot of respect for Twitter from both a technology perspective as well as a social reach perspective, but it wasn't a product that I used on a day-to-day basis. And at that point in my life, I wanted to work on something that I was personally a lot more passionate about. So I kept going back and forth around, do I go with the acquisition and do I stay, or do I go and do something else? And I couldn't decide till almost the very last minute. And I eventually decided, and my board was very supportive. And I said, look, I'll help you guys with the transition, but then after that, I want to go do something else. So it took a few months, did some soul searching around what did I really want to focus on. And the two things that I narrowed it down to were either education or healthcare. I felt that as a technologist, technology had been late to the game in both those spaces, and there was a lot of positive impact that you could still have. And between those two, education was just closer to my heart. So I started looking into different edtech companies and got introduced to this gentleman named Rohit, who had started this company called 10 Marks Education. So, if you think Posters was the smallest thing I joined, this became even smaller. Like, I think he only had 4 or 5 people in the US. He had another bootstrap team in India. They had built a product, but as it started taking off, they really needed to build a strong team around it and rebuild the product and technology around it. So, but I loved what he was doing, and I ended up joining as the CTO, as the first tech and product person in the US. And so ended up rebuilding that product and that team from the ground up. Absolutely loved doing it. The space was absolutely great. I've got lots of good stories from that. And as we were, doing some very interesting things, Amazon got interested in us, and they first came in, um, and they were trying to lead our next round. But as part of doing that due diligence, they said, "Hey, we just want to acquire you guys right now." That was another tough choice to make, but hats off to Rohit. He made the right call on it. We ended up getting acquired by Amazon. It was Amazon's first acquisition in the education space. And then I ended up, staying at Amazon for the next few years, continuing to run technology and product for 10 Marks. Then I left after a few years thinking that I was going to take a year off. Did a bunch of travel, went back to Pakistan as well, went to the northern areas, all that good stuff, did a few road trips in the US. Then I got dragged into my next company, which was Lending Home. One of my friends there was the chief marketing officer. He said, "Hey, we need some advice, some help." So I started having conversations with them and really liked what they were doing, really liked the team. And I decided, not going to take the year off. 4 months is enough. I'm going to go do this. So stayed there for a few years. Lending Home was 18 months old when I started, but it was a rocket ship. It was growing really, really fast. And we ended up becoming the largest fix and flip lender in the US. The company is still the largest fix and flip lender in the US. They're doing well. I stayed there for a few years, and I decided I wanted to go and do something else, more focused on consumer products. When I left, I thought I would only take about 3, 4 months off and then either start my own company or join the executive team or something else. That time around, I did end up taking a full year. Ended up skiing in the Rockies for a month, did a bunch of other travel, some consulting, some advising, but I ended up taking a year off. And that's when Fandom came into the picture. They reached out. I actually didn't know as much about them. And once I really started to see how, what the scale was and what some of the interesting problems were, I became very, very interested in it. And I joined them back in August 2019, and now it's been 6+ years, and I still absolutely love it. So that was a very, very long-winded journey around how I got into tech and what I've been up to over these last many years. And happy to dive deeper into any of it if you have other questions.
I think that's quite a journey that you've had. What I would love to know is if you were to summarize your entire journey into one lesson, especially for early career professionals, what would that lesson be?
One, I mean, I'm fortunate to have had so many good lessons. If I just had to pick one, that is hard. But okay, if I absolutely had to pick one, is never never worry about the status quo. If you want to accomplish something, if you want to change something, if you think something can be done in a better way, you know, doesn't matter what the status quo is, doesn't matter, what people tell you in terms of this is the way to do things or has been the way to do things. None of that matters. If you want to go and change something, absolutely go after that. Go after that with all the passion that you have. And you absolutely will be able to affect change. So I think that if I had to pick one thing, I think there's many, but if I had to pick one, I would definitely start with that.
Amazing. So, based on the influx of AI technology, and there are so many apps, do you think that it is negatively impacting people who are just beginning their career? And what advice would you give to them to tackle that challenge?
I think it is absolutely going to have a tremendous impact on them. I think it already is. Like when we look at the job market right now, we're already seeing that people coming out of school at this time are having a harder time finding those jobs that they used to be able to get pretty easily. And so these are challenging times. That said, I don't think the future is bleak from that perspective at all. One of the most important things that people can do who are at that stage of their life, whether they're early in their careers or whether they're coming out of school, is they have to leverage AI. If they're because look, the thing is when they're coming out of school, they don't have as much practical experience, right? And so you're not as valuable to companies at that point unless unless you can really, really show your value. And one of the ways to show that value is to be able to leverage AI to show how you've been able to transform things, how you can actually do things in a much more productive way, how you can solve more problems, and being able to showcase that in practical ways. Do that with your school projects, do that with personal projects that you may be passionate about. It is so easy to build things right now. Showcase your work. Actually go and innovate, like go and build things using AI. It is so much easier to get those things started. And if you're not staying ahead of the game, if you're not showcasing these things, you're not leveraging these technologies, then companies are not going to be as interested in taking you on, right? And why should they? And so you really do have to step up from that perspective. But if you do, you can absolutely add a lot of value, and I think companies are still going to be very interested in you.
Amazing. So you've mentioned that you've worked in leadership positions, you have a touch of marketing as well, you have a touch of product innovation. How do you combine all of those experiences if I talk about there was some specific challenge that you faced when you are so multifaceted.
Uh, so could you repeat the last part of the question, or you broke up on my connection a little bit?
So you have experience in leadership, marketing,
Mhm.
product, innovation. There's so many things that you have touched upon. Has that been challenging for you?
It's been more of a strength, right? And I think, and knowing that I'm not an expert in all of those areas, as a starting point first, right? Like, keeps me grounded because I am not. I may have more expertise in technology and product, which I'm way more passionate about. And yes, I've been able to delve into some of those areas. What it, what I would say is more than a challenge, the strength that it gives me is that it gives me empathy for those functions. And so when I'm collaborating with those teams, when I'm collaborating with my peers, either in the exec team or those functional leaders, I can I can try to empathize what their pain points are, and then I can try to solve them from a technology and product perspective. And so I think learning those skills may have been a bit of a challenge in the start. And it's not like you learn all of it one day, right? Like you work with cross-functional folks and you end up picking up things along the way. But the more you pick up, the more you know, the more you realize that you know less and less, right? Because these are vast domains, and you're basically just scratching the surface. But because you've learned a little bit, you have a lot more empathy, and that empathy really helps build those partnerships and being able to innovate a lot more, collaboratively. So I would say it's not a challenge. Picking them up, maybe a slight challenge. But for me, it was always just the curiosity. As much as I am a technologist, for me, technology has always been a means to an end. It's never been an end in itself. For me, the end has always been, what value am I creating? How am I impacting somebody positively, right? Like if I'm building a feature, if I'm building a product, how will that change somebody's life in a positive way, or how will that impact the business? And so once you start focusing on those things, then you have to focus on things more than technology, because then you want to figure out how you're going to take something to market. How are you actually going to, how are you even going to do the accounting for it, and so on, like, back on your books and stuff, right? And so you start learning about all of those things. And so picking those up may be a bit of a challenge, but if you've got the curiosity, then it's just fun to learn all of those things. So I would say it's definitely a strength.
Awesome. In your opinion, what are some of the biggest trends in AI right now that you're
I mean, look, agentic AI is going to be the
seeing
biggest
and
word that
you
gets
really love
thrown
them?
around. Agentic AI is going to be the biggest word that gets thrown around again and again and again, right? Like at this particular point. But it is also one of the most interesting things that is happening. I think as you have true agentic AI, like agents that are really going to be able to take on not just specific tasks, but being able to really replicate work and do do part of your job. It is going to be very, very interesting. So I think you're going to start seeing agents that are going to be built, for specific verticals, and the sky is the limit on that one. So I think that for me is one of the most interesting things at this particular point. That pretty much every company is diving deeper into that and trying to leverage that, and I see lots of interesting things on the horizon.
Okay. So I don't ask this question, and I have always wanted to ask somebody because you said that you consume a lot of content that's not just related to technology and
Sure.
work, but that's separate. There's so many shows, there's so many films that combine the creative marketing as well as professional world. Do you know of anything? Would you suggest somebody to us?
I mean, there is just so much content. Okay, look, I grew up on Star Trek, and I will tell, like, and Star Trek is not just a sci-fi show. It is very much about culture. It's very much about a positive look on life. So it's about optimism. It's about the ability to actually, it's about the ability to go and affect positive change and innovate. And so if you look at many of the scientists and people in tech over the last several decades, a majority of them are going to be Star Trek fans because there's so much that they've taken from that show, from that universe. It is just mind-boggling. So many things that have actually come up on that show as concepts, have eventually either become products or like have basically uh have influenced products and so on. And that's just a starting point. So I think there are a lot of interesting shows like that that will teach you about innovation, leadership, optimism, and then of course there's going to be other stuff on the dark side as well. There's just too much good content that's out there, and as I said, I probably watch too much of it. So, but if I had to start with one show, I'm always going to go to Star Trek because that's that was basically the thing that got me started on this line.
So my next question was going to be to ask you your favorite show, but I feel like there's a recurring theme around Star Trek.
Yeah, that one is. I think if I had to give an easy answer, yes, it would be Star Trek, but then I'd pick Star Trek Deep Space Nine within like all the different Star Trek shows. But I have so many other favorites as well. In fact, like if I was sitting in my own house right now, back in Silicon Valley, you would actually seen my background with all sorts of things on the wall from my favorite shows, and a lot of it would be Star Trek stuff. So
Awesome. So we're gonna have a bunch of people coming to meet you in unscripted session. What is the one thing that you would like to say to them to come prepared with, or you would like for them to take away from a conversation with you?
in terms of, I think, coming prepared with from a questions perspective is, come with real problems. Like if you want to discuss real challenges that you're facing from a scale perspective, leadership perspective, happy to dive deeper into those. um in terms of what you could take away from it, like that's a tougher one because that's going to depend on the type of questions and conversations that we end up having. But I think my expertise at this point in life has become more about scaling organizations, both from a technology and product perspective, as well as from a people and process perspective. And so I'm equally passionate about both ends of that equation. And so I'm hoping that if you're coming to my session, you'll end up talking with me about scale, not just from a technology perspective, but especially from a people perspective as well, because honestly, that is the most important part of your organization. As you scale, if you don't do that part right, the other stuff doesn't work, no matter how good your technology is and stuff. And so if you have to take away that one thing, the people are going to be the most important part of your business, your team, your company. And so make sure that you're doing that part right. So that would definitely be one of the most important things that I take away.
That's a beautiful thing. Thank you so much, Adil. It was lovely to have you, and we're looking forward to meeting you in our unscripted session that's going to be taking place during our annual conference 2025 on 8th of November at Santa Clara Convention.
Absolutely looking forward to it. Thanks, Rabia.
Thank you. Take care, Hafiz.
Allah Hafiz.